The U.S. debt ceiling debate is currently racing against time before it finds a reasonable closure. U.S. President Joe Biden and the Republican lawmakers appear to near a deal as far as to cut spending and raise the debt ceiling with little time to spare to avoid a potential default that could wreak havoc on the economy and global markets. The agreement would specify the total amount the government could spend on discretionary programs. This includes housing and education. Meanwhile, Republican negotiators have also backed off plans to increase military spending while cutting non-defense spending. Kevin McCarthy, the Republican House Speaker, has also come out to say that both parties have known that the deal would not be an easy one. As negotiations edge closer to a deal, some hard-right lawmakers complicated matters for McCarthy by adding additional demands to their budgetary wish list. The Biden administration, however, has continued to remain hopeful of reaching a deal ahead of the deadline on the 1st of June. But why are we really seeing such a back and forth? What really is the debt ceiling and why is this so crucial for the Biden administration and any other U.S. government? Now, essentially, the debt ceiling is the money that the U.S. government borrows to pay bills. What really are these bills? These bills include Medicare, military expenses, among many others. In the United States, you have the Congress that places the cap on this amount. As of now, the debt ceiling is at $31.4 trillion. Currently, that's the limit, and we're understanding that this was first introduced during the World War I. Now to the big question. What really happens if the United States actually defaults as far as this debt ceiling is concerned? Now, while this is interesting is that the United States has actually never defaulted. So if this happens, it will be a first time. But when you speak to experts, they give you the worst case scenario. They say livelihoods of Americans will be threatened. You'll have investors that will begin to lose confidence in terms of pumping in more money. Job cuts will then become a reality and the U.S. economy could slip into recession. But what we're hearing from the Biden administration is that they're hopeful of a deal. Let's take a look at some reactions.
The president's negotiating team has had productive discussions with the speaker's team, and those discussions continue. You've heard all the congressional leaders make it clear that default is not an option. The president has said that, the speaker has said that, and we want the American people to understand that as well. Preventing default is not a matter of debate. It's basically the responsibility of Congress. What is up for debate, though, is the budget. And that's what these discussions are about. Two very different fiscal visions for our country and our economy. So look, the president and his negotiating team are going to continue to fight for the president's vision and for his priorities, and they're going to do that in good faith. At the end of the day, everyone understands that the only way to move forward here is with a bipartisan, reasonable agreement on the budget that can win support from both sides, from both Democrats and Republicans in the House and in the Senate.
Speaker McCarthy and I have had several productive conversations.
U.S. President Joe Biden on Thursday said he and top congressional Republican Kevin McCarthy were closer to a deal to cut spending and raise the government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling with little time to spare to head off a default that could devastate the economy. Speaking at a White House event, the Democratic president said Republicans are pushing for steep cuts that would increase wait times for Social Security claims and decrease the number of teachers, police, and Border Patrol agents.
I don't believe the whole burden should fall on the backs of middle class and working class Americans. My House Republican friends disagree.
A deal would only set broad spending outlines, leaving lawmakers to fill in the blanks in the weeks and months to come. Any agreement will still have to pass the Republican-controlled House of Representatives and the Democratic-controlled Senate. That could prove a challenge, as some right-wing Republicans and many liberal Democrats have said they were unhappy with the prospect of compromise. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre.
We know this vote will require, again, Democrats and Republican votes, which means that when you negotiate, when these negotiations happen, both sides have to understand that neither side is going to get everything that they want.
A U.S. default could upend global financial markets, push the U.S. into recession, and, according to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, threaten national security.
I think there's no doubt whatsoever that there would be a very significant negative impact on the readiness, morale, and capabilities of the United States military if we defaulted. But I think it would be very, very significant, without a doubt, and it would have absolutely clear, unambiguous implications in national security.
Even as negotiations continue, McCarthy prepared to let lawmakers leave Washington for a week-long holiday recess, but said they would return if needed for a vote.